I do think it is about the run game, and that's what Shanahan's always been kind of about the run game, regardless of where he is. Even in Atlanta, we had some productive teams despite Matt Ryan, bombing it, and that's that zone blocking scheme. It's one of my favorite things to watch. When it's well executed, it's just so effective. And last year we saw it. Only the Ravens, who were record-setting, had more run game production than the 49ers. And the other reason we need to talk to you about it, though, is it's always tough to project who is it going to be, who's going to get this work in the Shanahan scheme. They call it the Shananahanigans in fantasy football because we just don't know if there's a bell cow, they feast. Devonta Freeman was the number 1 running back in fantasy, then the number 3. But other than that, when we don't have the clear guy, it can be a weekly headache. So there's a lot of people that are, I'm not going to touch Coleman or Mostert because I don't know which one's going to get the work and I don't want to deal with the headaches. But then there's the people, and I'm kind of in this camp. I love Mostert. I'm in that boat where, maybe he does finally get at least a steady, maybe not bell cow, but enough that I know he's getting 15-ish touches. And if he does, the system's so good and he's such a good fit that he blows it up and lights it up. So I'm willing to take that stab. A lot of people aren't. I don't know about you. What do you think of Mostert? Let's start with him because he blew out into the scene last year. I have him over 20 spots higher, as I was just kind of saying, than the industry. And now that Breida's gone, I'm really into this. But what do you think about Mostert next year? Should I be as high as I am?
Well, like the theme I've been saying the entire time is you got to remember who Shanahan has invested himself in. His ego, the team's money, and it's not Mostert. Mostert's on a special teams gunner contract, making about $3 million a year. That reflects that he's the best special teams player on the team, but it doesn't reflect anything about his running back status. Coleman is making $5 million. Coleman is the starter, and Shanahan likes Coleman. Coleman, for whatever reason, he sees Coleman as the between the tackles downhill runner, although he's not exactly big, but he's bigger than Mostert. So when you get to the inside the 5, inside the 10, it's going to be Coleman. So it hurts if you're a Mostert owner. That being said, look at Mostert's stats last year. Even in a situation where he wasn't starting and he wouldn't get a lot of the low red zone work, he killed it. He got a bunch of touchdowns. He got a bunch of yards. So I love Raheem Mostert. Love him, especially for this offense. And I'll explain why he's perfect. On another team, he wouldn't be. But on this team, remember, the best run blocker is not an offensive lineman. It's George Kittle.
Yeah.
Okay? Nothing against McGlinchey and Staley or Tomlinson. It's Kittle. There's a stat that just him being on the field, the Niners average like more than 5 yards a carry outside the tackle. It's him. And if you watch him, he'll take safeties and just move them down the field. He creates space. So what you need is just a gunner who runs a 4-3, who can sprint very fast right behind Kittle and create the space Kittle makes. Take the space Kittle creates. That's what Mostert does. He doesn't. I mean, he's shifty, but he doesn't have to be. He just runs straight, and he picks up 8 yards without getting touched. Coleman isn't fast enough to do that. Coleman's like he'll get the ball, slow down, cut back, and then try to hit it between the guard and the center on the backside. It's like, dude, you're not taking advantage of the best blocker in football. So that's just Coleman. It's always been his style because in Atlanta they had Alex Mack. So cutting it behind the center was a good play. On the Niners, it's not. You want to get out to Kittle because it's the easiest 8 yards you'll ever get. And Mostert figured that out real soon. As long as Kittle's on the team, you want Raheem Mostert. They'll have to give him 12 carries a game, 13. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up with 1,300 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns, even though Kyle Shanahan loves Tevin Coleman. Mostert is just a perfect fit with George Kittle. Perfect.
I mean, that's some lovely stats right there. 1,200 yards, 10 TDs for a 5th, 6th round price. And I totally agree with you. If he gets that volume, he should blow that off right there. So, I mean, that'll make him a steal if he gets that. So I'm hoping so. We're on the same page there. What about in terms of receiving work? Because a lot of leaguers do play PPR, point per reception leagues. And that's always huge when you get those running backs that not only get touchdowns and yards, but also can rack it up in the air. Is Mostert, Coleman, potentially McKinnon, Jerick McKinnon, could we ever see him again? Who do you expect to kind of eat up receptions out of the backfield? Are they going to use a receiver back there? Or what's going to happen? Is Mostert capable of that work, I guess, is a way to start there?
Well, first, they want it to be McKinnon. Mm-hmm. They want to have a guy who can run on 3rd and 5, kind of like Trent Taylor, can come out of the backfield and run those little option choice routes where you go right at a linebacker and then cross them up left, right, whatever you want to do, up to the wide receiver, up to the running back. That's an element that Devontae Freeman could do in Atlanta that the Niners really haven't had. Carlos Hyde couldn't do it. Tevin Coleman doesn't do it. Mostert doesn't do it. Breida could do it a little bit. Jeff Wilson could do it a little bit. But they're looking for Christian McCaffrey in the passing game. Not an all-around Christian McCaffrey, but they hope it's McKinnon. I don't think it'll be McKinnon. He's missed 2 years in a row. That would be one hell of a story if he could come back and be the same guy he was. They're going to give him a chance. He'll have all of training camp to prove it, but we'll see. Barring a miraculous recovery by Jerick McKinnon, I don't think they have anyone on the roster who can do that, who can have that kind of a third down roll out of the backfield. Mostert was a wide receiver in high school in the first 2 years at Purdue, but he's not that kind of a slot receiver-y type of wide receiver. He's 6 feet tall and a 4.3. He's long speed. And you saw him, he caught a touchdown pass against New Orleans last year that Emmanuel Sanders threw.
Yep.
I think they could use him up the sideline and on wheel routes and stuff like that. Not where he's making quick cuts over the middle, but where he's running deep, because he is the fastest player on the team. He has a history playing wide receiver. He has good hand-eye coordination. They could use him as actually like a surprise deep threat that the defense doesn't even cover, that loses track of on those wheel routes. I think that's one way they could get him more involved in the passing game, and I think they intend to.
That's very intriguing then to add that to the rushing workload that we hope to see increase if he is used on more of those wheel routes. You said they intend to. Yeah, please. As many as you want about him.
Shanahan likes to have this positionless football where he'll put wide receivers at running back, or he'll make wide receivers throw. Dante Pettis threw a pass last year. Emmanuel Sanders threw a touchdown pass last year on a reverse. The reverse and end arounds are a big part of the Niners offense, and they want to add throws off of that. I mean, it's the next wrinkle, right? So they drafted this guy, Jawan Jennings, from Tennessee, who actually was a quarterback in high school and had a whole Wildcat package at Tennessee where he would throw passes, run reverses. It's going to be part of the offense. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was a bigger emphasis this year, wide receiver passes to running backs. So
interesting.
That's another reason to draft Mostert.
What do you think his reception total might end up? I mean, I guess you're saying, again, it's more it might be more yardage than total receptions, but, I forget how many exactly he had last year. I think it was right around like 200 or so receiving yards. Do you think he is right around the same level? I'm pulling it up now, the exact stats he had. Or do you think you said they intend to maybe use him a little more on these wheel routes? Could we see a real spike in that receiving yardage department?
I think to me, the more reps and touches they give Mostert, the better he plays. Yeah. They haven't even found what his upper limit is yet. And just because he can't run maybe an option route out of the backfield doesn't mean that wheel routes are the only thing he can run. I mean, what else could he do? He could do jet sweeps. He could do those little pop passes. He could run screens. I think if he were on the Chiefs, Andy Reid would be scheming up a million ways to get him the ball in the flat for bubble screens. He could take those the distance. I think there are a lot of ways that they can give Mostert 15 touches a game. Maybe not 15 carries, but 12 carries and 3 catches. Why not? Because he's so explosive, and any one of those touches could go for a touchdown. So I'm not fading him at all. I think that he's going to force his way into getting more touches because he always performs so well.
I hope so, man. That'd be the ideal here. Other than Mostert, you said maybe McKinnon comes back. Is there any other players we haven't touched upon? I mean, we've been hitting, whether it's in the backfield, whether it's wide receiver, I feel like we've covered a ton of players. Is there anybody I'm missing before we get into your season prediction for the 49ers?
Well, usually you'd mention a few undrafted free agents.
Yeah.
Like, the Niners have a bunch of interesting running backs this year. They signed basically a running back committee. It may be the committee in 3 years. They got JaMychal Hasty from Baylor, who is the Jerick McKinnon receiver out of the backfield. He's 5'8". He's a little slot receiver who can line up in the backfield, and he's tough. They signed Savon Ahmed from Washington, who is the Matt Breida, Raheem Mostert, super fast guy who doesn't have the best vision, but can follow George Kittle's block to the outside and take it 86 yards for a touchdown. Then they got this bigger running back. I think his name is Josh Hackett from Fresno State who's like 6'1", 225 pounds. He could play fullback, he could play H-back, and he can be a goal line back, sort of like Jeff Wilson Jr. He a real tough runner. And under normal years, I'd say if Jerick McKinnon doesn't make it, maybe JaMychal Hasty will. But usually for an undrafted free agent to make a roster as a rookie, he needs to kind of kill it all offseason. He needs to show it in minicamp, OTAs, and training camp, and he just won't have that. These rookies won't have it, so I think it's going to be real hard for any undrafted free agent to make a roster this year. So I'm trying to think of players on the team who are under the radar. Daniel Brunskill. I think he's going to win the job at right guard. He doesn't really factor into our conversation, but he affects the run game. He affects the pass game. The Niners last year had Mike Person at right guard, who was not good enough for a Super Bowl contender. I think Brunskill will be an upgrade, and I think that means the run game should be even better. And you factor in they added Trent Williams at left tackle. Yeah. The blocking got a lot better. This run game could be even better than it was last season. I'm coming back to Mostert. He could have a monster season, dude. He could have like a Terrell Davis in 1997 season. You understand? He could go crazy. Yes.
Really? I love it.
Because it's all set up for him. All the blocking.
If he hits his ceiling, if everything goes perfect, what do you think that final – because stats is all we care about. What is that final ceiling stat line you could see from Mostert?
The ceiling, I think, given how committed the Niners are to running and how many excellent blockers he has, Trent Williams, Mike McGlinchey, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, and then the interior of the O-line isn't bad. Ceiling, 1,600 yards.
Wow.
Ceiling.
10 plus TDs?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Whew. 1,600. And is that just total yards or pure rushing? Like 1,600 rushing?
Rushing yards.
Oh, my good God.
I think he's a perfect fit for what the Niners want to do on offense. I don't think he would be necessarily as good on any other team.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a creative offensive coach and a good blockers, where's he going to go? How many defenders is he going to make miss on a given play or run over? Not many. But if he has a clear lane, it's over. Yeah. And he's going to average 6 yards a carry. He reminds me a little bit of Jamal Charles. Jamal Charles made it look so easy when he was young. He was just kind of gliding around the field, and then you look at the end of the game, he averaged 5.5 yards a carry. How'd he do that? That's Mostert to me.
Yeah. Especially in that Packers game in the playoffs, it was like, nobody can touch this guy. No matter what happens, the blocking was beautiful, obviously, but he just, as soon as that lane's there, there's no getting him. You're right. So
it's like playing Madden on rookie and the defense constantly takes the wrong angle. It's like, really? Right. Gee.
You still haven't learned this guy's going to blow right
straight before? Gee, yeah.
Oh, I love it. I know, man. If you take nothing else, listeners, right now, make sure you do not fade Mostert like many people are saying, because the upside, the ceiling, it's 1,600 rushing yard, double-digit touchdowns. It's there. The ceiling is there, and I've been saying that too, so I'm glad we're in agreement here.
I mean, just real quick, he rushed for like 220-something yards in the NFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. He basically carried the Niners to the Super Bowl. It was the game of his life. They probably would have beaten the Packers other ways, but on that particular day, he was the man. And then in the Super Bowl, he only got what? He got 12 carries, and they lost. Yeah. And who knows if they would have won if he had gotten 15 or 16. But they'll have to wonder that the rest of their lives, Kyle. And I feel like they may want to rectify that a little bit. Let's actually see what the upper limit is for Raheem Mostert, because we don't want to miss another opportunity to win a Super Bowl with bullets in the chamber.